Hey guys, Scott here again with a new beer dissection video. I have a classic today from North Coast Brewing Company on the West Coast. Old Rasputin, which is a Russian Imperial Stout. You probably have had this, it's been around for many years now. The only other one that's pretty famous, Imperial Stout, at least American versions, are Sierra Nevada Narwhal. I think Old Crustacean makes one. There's a few others out there, and of course you've got the ones that are now oak based, and like what am I thinking of? Bourbon County. I'm drawing a blank on that one for some reason. Let me just move on. Remember with Imperial Stouts, I have done what is style videos for Imperial Stout as well as Porter and Stout. And I'm just going to highlight a couple of things. But remember in the 1700s in the UK, specifically England, they were producing porters, and they're using a lot of brown malt. And then eventually with Daniel Wheeler and the roasting drum, they were able to produce different types of beers and utilize more of the sweetness from some of the pale two-row malts and things like that. So a lot of times for them to change their beers up a little bit, they would just have to make them a lot stronger until they started getting a lot of the black patent malts, roasted barleys, and things like that. This beer was Russian Imperial Stout initially, because they were exporting over to the Russian Imperial courts, loved it. But it dropped its name around 2015, at least the Beer Judge Certification Program dropped the term Russian before it. And that has nothing to do with the current day issues with Russia and Ukraine. But there was a brand of beer, Russian Imperial Stout. But they just felt the style of beer was more just strictly Imperial Stout. And, fast forwarding through the 1800s and then, of course, the 1900s, it became more of an American style of beer that we kind of embraced it a little bit more. And what did we wind up doing? Starting to throw more malt in it, make the ABV percentage even higher, even more hops to add some bitterness to it. So then, hence the current day Imperial Stout. Now, I wish I would have saved one of my Brooklyn Brewery dark chocolate stout beers. I wanted to do a side-by-side with it. I think I consumed those probably too quickly before I knew it. But that's another very good Imperial Stout here, and I've done a beer dissection on that pretty recently, depending on when you're watching this. But this one's kind of the granddaddy of some of the American versions of it. And it's, like I said, I may have not said, but it's at 9%. Where's it? North Coast Brewing Company, Fort Bragg, California. All right, so it's been around for quite a bit. With beers like this, you are going to be, this one's 9%, anywhere between 8 and 12%. There's usually a good hop bitterness to kind of balance off that sweetness from the malt, but you're not going to get those tropical fruit, citrus fruit aromas and flavors from the hops from there. But this is going to be a malt-forward beer, like most of your Bourbon County, I guess, stout. What I was thinking of, oak age stout that's very popular these days. That's like $20-something a bottle. Okay. So other than that, let's crack this bad boy open. Okay, just wanted to give you a little refresher on a little bit of the history, but I do have what is styles on stouts and Irish stouts and porters, and so if you are kind of a beer geek and you like that type of stuff, take a look at it on my what is styles. Okay, so again, North Coast, Old Rasputin. Remember, Old Rasputin, I should mention, when they took away the Russian name, a lot of companies, especially North Coast here, will use some Russian kind of connotations to be a little kitschy with the names of it. And obviously, Rasputin being a Russian figure. Okay, so that's why sometimes you'll hear that interchangeably use Russian Imperial Stout or Imperial Stout. But again, roasty, chocolatey kind of beer with a high ABV percentage is what you're going to see across the board. This beer I would definitely serve. Mine's a little colder than I would like. I usually like these closer to that 55 degrees. But I usually tell people if you're not sure where you're going to enjoy it, keep it a little colder and then let it warm up in the glass as you go along. All right, so let's take a look at this. So we're almost getting like a cascading, like it's Irish stout, but you get this nice light to medium brown kind of head on there. I pour a lot more aggressively still these days, so you are going to notice more head in my beer as I'm pouring it. This beer is pretty much like a dark brown, not quite black. But I can kind of see at the very bottom of the glass, I can still kind of see through it, so it is pretty clear. But again, it is kind of that dark brown. If someone wanted to say it was black, that would be at a quick glance, but it really isn't. It's kind of that dark brown. There's even like a reddish hue to it at the bottom. But again, very attractive looking beer. So let's take a sniff of the aroma. Wow. So you definitely get chocolate in here. Remember, it's not no chocolates being used like the dark chocolate stout from Brooklyn Brewery. No chocolates being used. But the balance between the chocolate malt, probably roasted barley, black patent malts, the ratio in the grist to create this beer. Very nice. So you get a little bit of a nutty roasted nut. There's definitely some roast on the aroma too. You know, maybe even like kind of a medium roasted coffee. But chocolate's there. Even like some dark fruit aromas. Kind of like that, you know, like if you were mashing up raisins or plums and figs all together. Almost like a real dark fruitcake around Christmas time, at least that some people will make. Kind of get this dark fruit. Little like brown sugar too, maybe a light toffee caramel. Very nice, guys. So cheers. Okay, let's take a swig of this. Well, I get like blasted. It almost tastes like chocolate covered nuts, like roasting like a hazelnut, pecan, kind of deep roast kind of nut with kind of a chocolate covering on there. There's also kind of this espresso backbone also to it. Like you're taking a little bit of the espresso coffee and putting it almost as if you were dipping with tobacco on your tongue. There's definitely a good, you know, moderate to pronounced bitterness here to kind of probably balance out such a high alcoholic strength beer. There was a little warmth, alcoholic warmth to it, but that kind of fleets away pretty quickly. On the aftertaste, you're left with like almost like a chocolate covered coffee bean, you know, kind of ground up. If you've ever chewed on those chocolate covered coffee beans and you kind of spread it along the roof of your mouth and the floor of your mouth. Definitely full bodied this, and you would expect an Imperial Stout. Again, this one's 9%, 8 to 12%. You'd expect it. Sometimes they go up as high as 15% or higher. I think I think I'm getting the name wrong, but I'm just drawing a blank. The Bourbon County, Goose Island Bourbon County Stout is somewhere in like 20% roughly. Very nice, guys. I haven't had this in a long time, especially since I've started this channel. Carbonation is, you know, kind of low to moderate, but it's just enough to kind of be, you know, I don't want to call this beer refreshing. This is definitely a sipper of a beer, and you're not going to be guzzling these on the deck, but it has enough carbonation that it kind of gives you that little refreshing off the taste buds. This is phenomenal so far. Again, I've had this before. I'm not want to pretend I've never had it before, but it's been maybe up to 5 years ago. But even on the aftertaste, I'm getting even more. Like you kind of get that chocolate nut. You know, there's probably a little bit like that brown sugar, dark fruit also on the taste buds. Like you have, you know, kind of raisins mashed up with some brown sugar, a little bit subtle thing for some of the sweetness that you're getting. But very good. You're going to get some nice lacing on the glass, which is probably a little more of my beer clean glass. But you know what? The alcoholic warmth is there, but it's not like hot. You know, like you just feel like you're being singed, like you're drinking vodka or gin straight out of the bottle. So again, guys, this is a phenomenal beer if you've never had it before. And it's usually pretty readily available at your local beer stores. Something like this, you know, you can probably go with some slow roasted meats, pork dishes, with some gravies, brisket, maybe with like a mushroom sauce, things like that. Even I would even drink this. I don't drink beer at dessert very often, but if you wanted this desserts like a creme brulee with some fruit on there, maybe a raspberry shortcake, it will kind of complement it. I think anything with chocolate would be a little too, like we call matchy-matchy. You know, it wouldn't hurt it. It would complement it, but it'd just be kind of boring food pairing with this. I like the nice blanket of either like a cheesecake, creme brulee, even some fruit, you know, desserts like with raspberries and things. This is kind of think of like pouring chocolate over that. But very good, guys. So again, it's got enough bitterness to cut through some things, but malt forward beer. Think chocolate, nuts, dark fruit flavors, with a little sweetness of like a brown sugar or like a molasses with your muddled fruit, like raisin, fig, date. You know, if you want to kind of think if you had a mixture of like that, like a dark fruit cake. This can't get any lower than an A+ beer. Again, Old Rasputin North Coast classic beer. Many of you beer geeks have probably had this before. If you want an Imperial Stout you can find very easily that's top notch, this is the one I would go for. Anyway, guys, so that's my beer dissection of the classic North Coast Old Rasputin Imperial Stout. I probably had the picture popping over the screen a few times. Drink these carefully because they're at such high % alcohol. Please give me feedback if you've had this before. You know, like I said, fantastic, but definitely malt forward, nuts, oats, roasted, dark fruit, chocolate, pretty much everything you'd love in an Imperial Stout without being too hot like the Goose Island Bourbon County Stout that's oak aged a lot of times. There's no oak in this either. Basic, very well made Imperial Stout. Anyway, guys, till the next beer dissection video or other beer video in general, have a great day. Take care.